What is up, nerds? I am Taylor. It is November 9th, 2022. It's a Cranky Comic book review show. I'm a little bit late in recording this. The sun's already down. Granted, daylight is no longer saved. The sun went down at, like noon today? I'm not sure. Whatever. Time is fake. It's all fiction. I got a bunch of shit here. There was elections yesterday. The world's somewhat of a hot mess, but not any more of a hot mess than it was the day before, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I review comics every week. I go worst to best every week. It gets pretty boring. I don't know why you're here. I talk about the same shit every week. I'm going to bitch about the letterer sometime today. I'm going to say some books are better than others, and I'll be like, why does this one get made? I don't understand. So you can skip to the end. That's pretty much what it is. But if you're going to stick along for the ride, let's get into it. First, we have issue 1 of this, and this is Gospel by Will Morris. I don't know. It's Image Comics, and I think Will did all the heavy lifting on this. I think it's a writer-artist combo, and it's sort of about the nature of storytelling and how the stories change through retellings, which is a kind of interesting idea, right? At least I think that's what this book is about. It's really confusing. There's some panels that just don't help things when he's drawing it, and like it gets muddy from one to the next. And I know you use the word muddy in storytelling a lot, but this is muddy storytelling. The same story gets told through several different times in here, and I get the point I think that the author's trying to make, and that the story does change through storytelling. But it's just not working as a story about storytelling. It's a mess. It's not compelling. It's not interesting. There's not a lot of redeeming factors. I do like the art for the most part. The panels that I was talking about aside, where you're like, I have no idea what the hell's going on in them, and that really hurts the story, notwithstanding. The other panels, the art kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Samney, whose art I enjoy. And but the story itself, I don't really know what's going on. And I don't know if you're supposed to, but like you have to have some inroad in for the reader to get them interested. And while it's an interesting enough gimmick that it should be an interesting enough inroad, it's not here. The cover is the best part about this bit, and it does relate to the story. And there's also like I think there's the idea of creating your own hero in here and like building your own legend. It's I don't know, and I get it, gospel, because the gospel's supposed to be truth. They literally trample over gospels in here. There's several scenes of a pig running over a Bible, which I heavy-handed, not disagreeing, not for me. I respect the Herculean amount of effort it does take to create a comic, and especially if you're doing it in a solo project. I think it's probably a labor of love. I don't want to belittle it. I don't want to say, hey, this is the worst thing I've ever read. It's not. It's just I didn't like it, so it is what it is. Now, Marvel books, I can trash them because you're a corporate machine, right? So let's get into that. We have Ghost Rider number 8. Oh, how the somewhat mighty have fallen. I liked Ghost Rider when it first came out. I didn't love it. 8 issues ago, it's sort of like every issue is kind of reminded me of the old Friday the 13th series, or an old serial where like loosely connected adventures in towns where something's gone horribly wrong and the world's falling apart. And that was an interesting idea of where every issue had its own little contained story tied together with the Ghost Rider, and like eventually it would weave together into something. Now the thing is, they've dropped that format. They had a really stupid motorcycle race, and now they're in a longer format, and you're sort of like learning what's wrong. And the problem is what's wrong isn't very interesting. The art I still like by Smith. It does capture kind of the gothic horror elements and the body horror and the kind of grossness of things. It's just the villain just seems very stupid, and the plot seems really goddamn stupid. So you put those things together, it's not doing it for me. This is the last one. I am done. I might have said that last issue, but I forget I'm weak and old. So if I did say that last issue, call me out in the comments. And if I forget this time and say it again next month, you'll be like, you Taylor, you're a stupid bastard. Which, let's be honest, I can be a stupid bastard. But yeah, I do like some of the horror body elementy type stuff. I think it's kind of effective. I like the subdued color palette. I like that. It's just the book itself, not interesting and not good, and I don't give a. Turns out I just don't care. Like, and if you can't get me to care, that's not a good sign. So Apathy. It's what's for dinner. All right, next. We have another image book, Two Graves, #1, by Valentine and Doyle and Wu and Lowridge. Let me see. Is this the one I'm thinking of? I read a lot of books this week, and I have to think of this one. Yeah, this one has two different artists. That doesn't work very well because it sort of is attempting to shift back and forth and like make it up and have two different storylines going, but they're not really. It's all one storyline, and so it's kind of jarring when it switches to one from one artist to the other, especially because one artist actually really is decent at drawing trucks, and the other one is hot garbage at drawing the same truck, so it's like kind of jarring. And then the story itself, I don't know, kind of. There's some bits here. There's some interesting stuff. It's like a lady wanting revenge, I think, for other dead, people that have been wronged, and then maybe having death or dream like figure to sort of help her. That's kind of an interesting idea. And without spoiling a whole lot, that's all I'm going to get into on it. But then it goes off on the rails, and there's a little subplot or a sub story about a Greek myth, and then a Roman myth, whatever. It's one of those mythologies, people. Persephone, whichever that was, and then kind of goes back to this main plot, and then the main plot itself really isn't much. It's a lot of talking and driving, and then there's sort of an ending that's supposed to be a revelation, but the way it's staged visually is about as boring as you can make it. And then the actual things that happen are like, that's just kind of dull. I don't care. I'm sorry. I just don't give a shit. Also, this cover, if you're reading this, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not done. I'm done with this. I like the kind of staid nature and the calmness of this weirdly, but as a story, it doesn't also work for me. And then, remember how I said I was gonna bitch about lettering? We have WildCATS #1. I haven't bitched about lettering in a while, have I? It's been a hot minute. But the lettering in this book really drives me nuts. It feels like it's trying to attempt something written by a ballpoint pen with this round nibs on the end of it, and it's not going to show up on camera. I'm sure it's not. So if you just pick it up, maybe you can see if you agree with me. And it's at an angle, very, very vertical. It doesn't have the somewhat italicized font that a lot of other comics use. And the reason I think they use a little bit of italics to it is it really helps the eye flow and helps it read. This is vertical, and it's vertical and tempting to be handwritten. It's not. It's computer generated. You can tell. With a couple variations in there. Maybe it is handwritten. I don't give a shit. It looks computer generated. And it's just really irritating and really jarred me out of the story. Now, the story itself, also not fantastic. It's Matthew Rosenberg writing this, who I kind of like sometimes. And it's setting up a new WildCATS team, which you're a 90s person. They were a team in the 90s and talking about aliens and seraphim and cherubim and whatever. Don't give a shit about any of that either. The story itself, it's just a fuck-up WildCATS team fucking up royally. What I do kind of like is I like the Grifter. And I think the characterization of the Grifter as a script is an interesting enough character. It's the only reason I actually picked this up is because I kind of dug that character. Like a screw-up bounty hunter. You're going to get me every time. It's just not... Nope, still not enough there. It's a limited series, and I gave it one issue. It's very limited for me because I don't care enough to keep reading it. The plot doesn't seem unique in a way that's going to grab me. And it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot new to be told here. It's like it's in the Marvel universe, or not DC universe, and there's going to be DC character interactions, and I think that's what they're counting on to drag people into this. Is worlds colliding, Jerry, worlds colliding, but it doesn't make for a good book on that alone. You still need other shit going on for me to care, and so, all right, it's fine. Your mileage may vary. Also, the art. Sometimes when the dialogue's happening too, there's really over the top facial expressions by Segovia, and I don't think that. It just doesn't seem to fit. It makes it feel too cartoony for the nature of the book, and I didn't really care for the art style and the way they drew Grifter. So, whatever. All right, Jeff Johns knows how to tell a story. He's done it before. He was, on Stargirl till it got canceled, and he's done some other shit. I can't remember. Probably some Power Rings-y kind of stuff. And I actually kind of liked his Batman-y, whatever that last one, Flashpoint Beyond, Your Mom, whatever that one. It was all right. And that kind of, I guess, maybe is supposed to be setting up this. The New Golden Age, #1. It's a one-shot. And this is a one-shot leading into another series, which is I understand why they do this. I understand you need to make money, and I understand you need to build up hype for a new series, and I understand all that, but just make it the first fucking issue in the new fucking series. Don't goddamn do this. It's super annoying because you're like, oh, this is like this, and instead of just saying, nope, this is issue number one, this is what we're doing. Nah. And there's issue number one that's going to lead into the Justice Society. Just call it Justice Society issue number one instead of the new Golden Age. For fuck's sake, it's like because you can charge more for this. Yeah, you can charge $5. It's not awful. Still need to get the stupid DC app so I can do this and save some money. Also, half these characters are not in this book on the cover here, and it's really timey-wimey and convoluted. Like, there's a lot of time jumping around, and it's all ties around Dr. Fate. That's what all I'm going to say. I don't want to, like, spoil anymore. Not even sure I can spoil a whole lot more. It's still confusing enough. You're like, all right, I mean, okay. It's not crazy confusing. It's not like the Golden Age where you had there's parts where I had no idea what's going on. I know what's going on. It's just kind of what's going on could have been told in like 4 pages as far as that goes. And they stretched it out into this issue-long thing with a whole lot of different artists. I get, you want to get some fill-in artists. You want to have some masturbatory like homages to Justice Society and the Legion of Superheroes and all that stuff. I get it, but it doesn't make for a great story. And that's not, not a great start to this all. Like I said, I know Jeff Johns can tell a story. This just isn't necessarily it. It's okay. All right. Next, we have another issue number one, which is another weird issue. Not a one-shot, but it's an issue number one that's a weird way to start a book. I like the cover. Fantastic Four number one. Ryan North is on this, and Coelho on the art. And okay, there's only... I'm spoiling a little bit here. I'm trying not to be super spoiling. Fantastic Four is not in this. Like 2 of them are. But the others aren't. And there's some things that happen in here. It's kind of groundhog, timey-wimey. There's not, like, it seems to be the theme. There's some timey-wiminess to this book. And the Thing acts in a way that I think is out of character. Maybe not out of character for the Thing in the 60s, but it feels like there should have been enough character growth in the past 50 years that the Thing would be over some of the issues that like North is bringing up in here, like where he gets really offended by people's appearances, like people thinking what he looks like, or he's had, and that drives him to violence. It doesn't feel like that should be as much of an issue anymore in Fantastic Four. And I get you're getting new readers in, and you're starting at number one, and I get you're like, trying to maybe rehash a fresh start, but it also seems like it's like an easy old thing to lay on, and I don't think in 2022 it should still be a thing. I don't know. Otherwise, that said, weird way to start the book. Very, very weird way to start in number one of Fantastic Four. And like the art is okay. I don't really actually love the way the Thing is drawing, but it's a fun enough story. It's not earth shattering. It doesn't have like a fantastic tale. It has a solid enough comic booky story. It leans heavily onto like tropes of like movies and TV shows and stuff. And like if you get about halfway through and you realize what's the trigger to what's happening in here, and you kind of can like predict how this is going to end up getting solved, and your prediction is going to most likely be right. It's almost enough for me to keep going. I might do one more issue just because I want to see if it turns into a real Fantastic Four book, if it's just going to keep going on this weird ass path. So we'll see. It's fine. Plus, if you like the Fantastic Four, you might get some mileage out of this. I didn't read the previous Dan Slott run because Dan Slott drives me a bit bananas, and I heard it was decent, but I just so yeah, we'll see. It's okay. Like I said, I dig the trippy ass cover. The story itself, not horrible. All right, next we have Moon Knight number 17. McKay and Capuccio. Capuccio's back on this one. This is Moon Knight at its Moon Knightiest, or at least it's Moon Knightiest under Jen McKay. It's just a badass comic. It's not like there's not deepness to this. There's not like any earth-shattering, revelatory things that happen in Moon Knight. Even at its deepest in these 17 issues, it's not been deep. It's been like a kiddie pool of emotional content. But if you want a comic book that's a superhero badass comic book about a badass being badass and doing badass things in a badass way, Moon Knight. It's Capuccio's liquidy, fluid art fits the book really well, and Jen McKay is just having fun with this one. It's not you're not. It's not even. It's not the deepest run of Moon Knight by any means. It's not like really doing any character explanation. It's not bringing a whole lot other to the table other than a little bit of expanding to the mythos and like setting up what's probably going to be a vampire war, which also badass. Moon Knight versus a whole crapload of vampires. What more do you want? And that's kind of it. Like, I don't always need comics to have great, deep, meaningful tales. Sometimes I just want some escapism. Sometimes you just want to watch the goddamn A-Team like get out of a jam or whatever, and that's what this is. This is the goddamn A-Team getting out of a jam. No, it's just fun. I mean, that's all it is. All right, next, a little bit different tone of voice and different tone. We have Traveling to Mars, #1 by Mark Russell and Roberto Melli. Mark Russell is one of my favorite writers going right now. He's written Space Age for DC. He wrote Not All Robots. He wrote One Star Squadron for DC as well. And this is the story of a man who gets chosen to go to Mars because he's dying. And that's kind of it. It's told from the point of view of that person. It's not an action-packed adventure. It's not even a super deep character reflection. It's got some sarcasm. It's got some tropes that Mark Russell likes to play with about how like humanity and corporations are cynical and evil, and it's not necessarily wrong about any of that. And how we screwed up this entire planet, and like now we're gonna go to a new planet and probably do it all over again. And the main character is likable enough without being a parody of like a dying person, or without being even like too sad and too like mopey. It's a nice book. It's interesting. He manages to take. I mean, the idea itself of traveling to Mars is interesting, but you think it'd be an action adventure and and a jam-packed romp on that one. It is not, and so like he's taking that and like kind of twisting it and making it sort of like a self-reflective piece about like what a man's going through as he's dying. And so that's an interesting idea for me, and I'm really liking this. I thought it's a solid first issue. I'm gonna keep it up. There are just a few issues like I liked a little bit more this week, but like it's better. This on other weeks, like the past couple weeks, would have been #1 pick because the last couple weeks have been hot goddamn garbage. But like there are a few others I liked a little better, including this one, which also surprised me. Specs #1 by David Boer, Christian, and Roman Stevens. Now David Boer wrote Canto, and Canto drove me goddamn nuts. I thought it was horribly paced, and I didn't like care for it much. And I know I'm in the minority of it. A lot of people love it. I don't care. Read it, like it, do your own thing. Write a review, but start your own YouTube channel. Review it. Be great. Have a Canto channel. I'll watch it. We can debate. But this is about, well, without spoiling a whole lot, it's two kids in high school and a bully that's going after them, and there's magical spectacles involved. That's kind of all I want to spoil on the matter. The artwork kind of reminds me of Jay Lee, kind of inky and fluid with like a subdued color palette for the most part. Look at that crack. Whatever the noise that made, dropped this down to a 9.6. And yeah, there's other. It's sort of a tender teenage story, without being super cheesy. But it ties it in together with a somewhat cheesy, like trope of like old superhero stuff, like magic spectacles and wish granting. And so it's like, what would these teenagers do with it? It's not necessarily what you expect, and it's not crazy over the top even. So it's nice. It's like kind of a grounded take on wish fulfillment fantasy books. It was a pleasant surprise for me. I will definitely pick up #2 of this because it left off with a solid enough ending where I'm like, okay, I want to see where this goes. And to give David Boer credit, he made me interested in this concept. The guy at the LCS recommended it. I was like, all right, I don't really like Canto. He's like, I hated Canto. I was like, okay, well then, if you hated Canto and like this book, I will give it a shot. And so if you hated Canto, you still might want to give this one a shot because I dug it. I also like the cover. Not my favorite cover of the week, probably, but still, it's a fun book. All right, next. And oh my God, is this one going to depend upon how the next issue goes? Because holy hell. But we have Nice House on the Lake, issue #11. This is the second to last issue of this long-winded, long-running, slow burn of a sort of horror, sci-fi, spacey, sci-fi, horror-ish, slow, burny book. Sanders, whatever, Kentucky Fried. It's James Tynion. It's art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno and Jordi Belair on the colors. Jordi Belair's coloring is always fantastic. Bueno's art seems a little rushed and messy in times, but at times, but I think that actually might be in service to the story. And there are things that are finally kind of revealed and hinted at in this issue, because we are like right at the end of this damn thing. And like for first 10 issues and about 10 and a half, you're like, what in the goddamn hell? Are we actually going to figure out what the hell's going on? And I don't mind that necessarily, the pacing. It's just because it's been such a slow ass book up until this point. The pacing in this issue might be a little jarring to you. It's because like all of a sudden it's like, are off to the races, and we're gonna get to the ending. And the last issue sort of set that up, and this is ramping it up. And I do think that there's a very good chance this will have a solid ending, because I think the revelation that comes in here is an interesting twist and in not a direction I think a lot of the readers are going to expect, and I think it's kind of a fun one. And so it's one of these series that's going to definitely require a reread when it's all said and done. So if you've not picked it up yet, don't. Just wait. Just get a trade or read it digitally. Do that, because it'll probably read much better. This book had 6 issues, went on a delay. They had a couple more, then it felt like another delay, and now it's finally getting to the end of it all, which is great, but it makes it hard to read this kind of thing, especially because Tynan doesn't tend to write very well for a single issue. He writes better for volumetric stories and or miniseries or that kind of thing, where like you can read him in one sitting and you'll have a nice experience. He can be a frustrating as fuck writer to when you're reading single issues, and several issues of this are no different. I am going to reread it when it's all said and done. I might even make a video about it. It's just because I think it might be worthy of it. If it sticks to landing, it could make the top 5 or 10 books of the year, because it does have that potential. And this issue really helped realize some of that potential. So we'll see. If the ending sucks, it's all going to crash and burn. And again, a lot of stories are like that. But this one's more so than most. Like, if this does not end well, holy hell, is it going to be a fucking annoying ride, or a book to have gone along with, because we're talking 11 issues in, and it's got to stick the landing. I think it might. I really do. I'm actually optimistic on this one, more so than I have been with some other Tynan's other stuff. So we'll see. Let me know what your thoughts on this one too, because I think it's an interesting one, and let me know if you'd ever want to come along and talk about the series once it's all wrapped up. Speaking of another series, it's probably going to have to stick the landing. But honestly, even if it doesn't, this has been a fantastic goddamn book so far. And if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, this should not be a surprise as far as like what my favorite book this week was. Because anytime this book comes out, it's been, I think, my favorite top 1 or 2 books of the week. It's Doing Powerbomb number 6 by Daniel Warren Johnson with coloring by Mike Spicer. This is just fantastic. It's wrestling. It's over the top. It's ridiculous. It's got necromancy. It's got other realms. It just manages to meld together all this kind of weird-ass shit into a glorious pile of a comic, and I mean that in the best way. Like, I'm not a big pro wrestling fan. I watched the cartoons in the 80s, and I watched a little bit in the 80s growing up, and that's about it. It's not my jam. I don't give a shit about the new storylines and all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of comic fans do. That's awesome. It's just not my sauce. And like, I don't really give a shit about books about necromancy and otherworldly stuff all that much, because it's not my sauce. But what Daniel Warren Johnson has done here, and he sort of did this with Murder Falcon as well, as I think he just enjoys taking something that you should not have poignancy with, or you wouldn't expect it, like a heavy metal drummer or a heavy metal guitarist, or in this case, a pro wrestler, and turn it into something that's going to make you cry while you're reading it. I think he just kind of takes great joy in causing his audience emotional trauma, and I mean that in a good way. There's heart-wrenching moments in this series. There's fun, great action sequences. There's like Daniel Warren Johnson does a great job of drawing these wrestling moments and making them dynamic and making them fun, and with Spicer on the art, it really just helps. You get all the tropey like giant word bubbles. You get the the super fun action like suplexes or whatever the hell. I don't know my wrestling terms, but then you get quiet family moments and quiet emotional tugs at your gut, and you're like, God damn it! Like, and it shouldn't work. Like, if I describe this book to you, it's like a heavy metal, over the top power wrestling in an alternate dimension to save someone from the dead. That shouldn't work. That should not be an emotional book. But this is an emotional book, and it's great. if this sticks to landing, which I think it's got one more issue left, maybe two. Because I said to be concluded. This might also be the penultimate issue. It's going to be the book of the year, and it's not even going to be close. I think anything else is going to be a distant second to it. It's been fantastic, and it definitely worth getting. You could probably wait again if you want to read it collected. I don't know if this one needs that because every issue of this I've loved, and every issue I felt has a great resolution to that issue, or at least a great setup for the next issue. I think Johnson has excelled at like leaving the audience wanting more every month, and that's all you can really ask for out of a monthly like title or a book like this. And like every month, I'm like, God damn it, just give me more. All I want, I just want to eat it up, and it's awesome. Honestly, I don't think 2022 has been a great year for comics. I think 2021 probably had some better books, but this is a standout and a truly great book. So that's what I've got. I'm going to get out of here. It's running late. It's holy crap. I really am running late. All right. Thank you so much for watching. As always, don't be a dick even if you need a haircut and you're wearing a really big floppy shirt. I don't know. I feel like I'm wearing a tent. Don't be a dick in a tent. Don't be a tent dick. Tenty, dicky, tenty. Yeah, all right. I'll see you.